Welcome to all our listeners and welcome back to SomaliDispatch.com. As you can see on the call today on prompt due interview with Omar Fateh, a state senator in Minnesota, Minneapolis. He's running on District 62 on the eve of the election of the United States. This is the possibly the not ideal, but a good time to talk to you about what's going on in the states in terms of elections. So let me first extend my congratulations on also on behalf of our watchers and viewers. Thank you for
Thank you.
all the good work that you did and all your activism. Let's start. You're first generation Somali, as I understand. Can you
Yes,
tell us what that entails in terms of living in two worlds, possibly three?
yes, absolutely. So my father immigrated here on a scholarship in 1963, and my mother came in the 70s to New York. And myself, I was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Virginia. And I spoke about this a lot on the campaign trail because me being a Somali American, both a Somali and an American, being born here in America, but growing up in an immigrant household,
Right,
I had one foot in each culture, if it makes
right,
sense.
right.
And that's why I really believe that was best to bridge the gap between the immigrant and non-immigrant populations, especially with all of its unmet needs that has largely gone neglected this past several cycles,
Right. If not forever. So
if not
let
forever.
me,
Absolutely.
yeah, if let me. This is a groundbreaking on so many levels what you're doing, and what it means for both generations that came before you and that those that look up to you now and see their lives in your story. Can you please tell us I know you're pressed for time. Can you briefly tell us how you got involved in politics?
Yes, absolutely. So my interest in politics first came in high school.
Right.
In my senior year, there's actually like a project that we did for our government class, and our teacher placed us in races that were basically having candidates that went against your beliefs, right? So I was placed in a Republican candidate running
Right.
for district attorney. And that time, I really disagreed with everything that he was talking about. He was talking about basically he was against second chances. He was using language that was like anti-black, anti-minority, and that really upsetted me. So that really opened my eyes to a lot of things, such as yes, people focus at the federal level what's going on, but a lot of stuff happened that affects your life. I
Right.
would say more so at the local level, right? The district attorney races, the county races, the city council, state legislature. Those are all things you really need to pay attention to. And
Right.
from that, I started getting involved helping out different campaigns. And fast forward, I'm here where I am right now.
Excellent. If you can go into a little bit, I know you're involved in organizing, and
Hmm.
possibly that's second most important job in politics, right? Other than being the decision maker, canvassing communities and getting to people and asking them what their priorities are, what their concerns are. Can you tell us, Bill, about how that works? Because I'm not quite sure if our community understands what that entails.
Yes. So, uh, of course, pre-COVID, it requires a
Right,
lot of door knocking, right? So what
right,
we did is we spoke with different neighborhood groups, different community leaders, people that I guess at the doors would be a lot recognized. And what we did was we formed these small teams. So my campaign, for example, it wasn't just like an East African operation. We had folks that were indigenous, Latino, folks that cared about housing and climate justice and all of that, right?
right,
So we make sure that in terms of canvassing and reaching out to voters, we had people that were volunteering that reflected the diversity of our district, if that makes sense, so that
mm,
the conversations are a lot more comfortable and we can speak to the needs of the different needs of the district as well. And it
right,
proved to be successful. We shocked the world when we first won the convention,
right.
getting the endorsement from the DFL with
Yeah,
about what 72% of the delegation. So then folks started taking us seriously, and from there we just started organically building more power and reaching out to different labor groups, environmental groups, and so on. So when you organize, it's just not like an individual effort. You got to bring a friend, another friend, and you got to make sure that folks understand how it's not just about a single issue, how all of these issues are interconnected and affect each other, right?
Mhm.
Um, for example, we were campaigning on a $15 an hour statewide minimum wage,
Minimum.
um,
Okay.
but but at the same time, that won't go far enough if people don't have health insurance, which is why we advocate for Medicare for all, right? Healthcare that's not tied to employment. So that's just one example, but these are all issues that are pieces to a puzzle
Mm.
in which, if you put them together, would enhance the quality of life for everybody, especially being one of the poorest districts in Minnesota.
Right. If we continue on poor people's needs and what have you, and community organizing, clearly you're aware there are, be they a minority, a group of specifically Somalis who seem to be advocating for certain, you know, for certain campaign to be blunt for Trump. What would you say to those if they're listening to you today, uh, given the needs that you just highlighted?
Folks that are advocating for Trump,
Right.
I would say that I wouldn't recommend advocating for an individual that directly goes against, or is directly against your rights as a human being and as an immigrant. He came here a couple of times to solely attack Somalis. We've seen him have not only anti-immigrant but anti-Muslim language, speaking against people of color, focusing more on the wealthy and the corporate rather than the working class. So there's nothing about the message that Donald Trump is putting out that speaks to our needs or reflects our values.
Right.
So I'll highly advise not to do that.
Right. So at the eve of this election, historic election, what would you tell Somalis in terms of getting out the vote, encouraging people and letting people know what's at stake here? What would you tell uh, your constituents and you know, Somalis at large, wherever they may be?
Vote, vote, vote. I know that everybody has a lot of concerns about what's going on, especially in 2020 with the COVID crisis and the high unemployment rate, people living without insurance. But those concerns will go unnoticed without your voice, right? And your voice is your vote.
Right.
And you gotta come out. You gotta come out in large numbers, and we gotta make sure that we're voting as a block as well,
Right.
making sure that we have an agenda. We speak to that agenda, that working class agenda that promotes prosperity for everybody, right? And
Right.
making sure that we bring our elders, our young folks, those who traditionally have not come out to vote. We need everybody in this election to come out, not just for the federal level, but making sure at the local levels as well.
Right. Voting up and down the ticket is the priority, and that's what you want to get. But as the state, as the phrase goes, all politics is local. So what you're doing on a state level and even lower and even higher some at times, how important is it for the community to have the answers that they need in some of the challenges that you just outlined, generally speaking?
Well, anytime there's laws that are not passed at the federal level, or laws that are going against our values at the federal level, we can make up for that at the state level, right?
Right.
For example, there could be anti-immigration laws that at the federal level that you want ICE to come out, immigration and customs to come out and look out, try to pick up undocumented residents, for example. The state can say, no, we're not going to do that. At this county level, we're not going to do that, for example, right? So there are laws
Sanctuary
where,
cities, right? Yeah.
yeah, there are laws at
Yeah.
the local levels, at the state levels, where you don't have to play ball with the federal level.
Right.
If the federal level fails to pass, for example, Medicare for all, we can do that at a state level.
Right.
So there's a lot of powers we can do, and a lot of things good that we can do,
Right.
if we gather as a collective at the state level.
Right. And can go against, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, yeah. So the devil is always in the details, and the more you can get involved, politics locally, the bigger the impact is. I see you pressed for time, and I appreciate you giving us this brief time to discuss these issues, and hopefully after your win, we can discuss some issues further. I applaud you and
Absolutely.
I thank you, and
Thank you.
I will encourage all young Somalis to look to you for a way forward. Those of us who are enchanted, they can look to you and see that you can actually make difference and let that be known. Thank you again, and
Thank you
we
so much.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
good
you.
care.
Have a good one.
Yeah,
Take
you
care.
too. Bye bye.